I hated that, and I honestly thought I was never going to figure it out. I was like, oh, maybe this is just how sales is, right? The sales process was definitely a big change, having a better, more structured one that you gave me. The first month working with you, April, I hit 20K. I didn't think that was going to actually happen. Obviously, it's worked for people. There's no reason why it's not going to work for me. Any coach can guide you, but you're the one that has to do the effort, right?
Even people in 9 to 5s, you go, yeah, but it's stability. I completely disagree. I think nothing is stable. Before we get into it, for anyone who doesn't know you, what you do, what's your business, and what were you doing before we started working together?
Yeah, so my name's Ritvik. My business is basically helping wealth advisors actually add clients on LinkedIn. So the main difference is we're not focusing on pitching or spamming or just playing a volume game or posting content into the void. Basically, like the goal is to build relationships with their ideal prospects, usually on the higher net worth side. And the way we do that is, really asking questions that find the problems their prospects are facing so they can build a consistent system instead of just relying on luck. And obviously, most wealth advisors struggle a lot on LinkedIn. Most of my clients are advisors, obviously, so they aim to add anywhere from just 2 to 3, ideal high net worth clients a month, which obviously allows them to push their business forward a lot. The way I do it is through a consulting format. So my goal is to actually teach them the skills and help them implement the strategy and implement the framework so that even after they stop working with me, they can just repeat that forever. And, they don't have to rely on anyone else for their marketing. In terms of where I was at before, so I started this business in July of last year. So July of 2025, really just my background in sales and marketing. Before that, I had some success in LinkedIn lead getting, with a different marketing agency. So I transitioned into that. And really, obviously, as it is when you start a new venture, it's pretty hard the first few months. So, July and pretty much most of 2025, it wasn't horrible in the sense that when I did get clients, we got good results and, I was still able to onboard clients every month. I think most of the issue was honestly in my offer and my pricing and my sales system. Like the LinkedIn side of things was good, but the actual business side of things wasn't as set up properly. I was just kind of figuring it out on my own as I went. So that was kind of how it was from July to honestly like February of 2026. I had growth in the sense of onboarding clients, but then in March, I made a little bit of a restructure where I just changed like a pricing. Basically, instead of always splitting it up and pricing it as like monthly for 3 months or 4 months, I just collected up front, got me my first 10K month basically. And then that was kind of when I decided to join with you at the start of April. And then obviously, I'm sure we'll get into what we've done since then.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously you've fucking smashed it since you come in. Like you're filling up the Discord, cash in the bank channel. Like all of my other clients are talking about it. But what number were you stuck at and for how long before we started?
So, and I'll even say this, like when I first saw you on LinkedIn, like that was pretty much like the start of 2026. So it's not like, even from, since I saw you, like I was already thinking about it because I knew I was stuck there. So I was stuck at like probably between like 3 to 5K a month for quite a long time, pretty much until like January. I think February I got over like 5K for like the first time or something. And then as I said, in March I hit 10K, but it wasn't like I developed a system or anything. I literally just changed the pricing structure and that got me to 10K. It was like 11K actually. But I still onboarded the same amount of clients. Like it's not like I changed like my sales system or anything like that. And that was honestly the biggest thing for me because like the reason I was stuck there was like I was able to book calls. Obviously, like the nature of my business is that I can book calls on LinkedIn in the DM. So that's the same thing I'm teaching, but it was more so the sales side of things. And that's obviously I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, was that your question? That's where I was stuck at, mostly between like 3 to 5K for quite a long time and then a little bit over 10K, but it wasn't like a repeatable system that I had to do that again.
Yeah, cool. Okay, give me the transformation in one line before we dive into it step by step. Where was you when you started with me? Where are you now revenue wise?
Yeah, so when I started, I would say so I was at 11K. Obviously, that was my first month at 11K. Again, I'll caveat that by saying it wasn't like a system. So maybe we'll just say like the range, but let's say I didn't join with you, maybe I would have stayed at around like 8 to 10K, right? Something like that, I would say. I mean, even though I kind of moved fast, I joined with you the month after I hit 10K. So last month I cash collected 27,000 around that, just over that. So I cash collected 27,000 there. And yeah, I mean, the biggest change has definitely been the sales process. I would say I think that's something that we refined a lot. And it's also more of a strategy and a system, right? We're like, so I have no doubt that next month or this month, I guess, I'll easily get over 20K. And obviously we have plans to do more than that as well, right? So like it's only been, let's say that was in April. So it's been April, May, and June, basically. So just 3 months. And I actually did 20K all 3 of those months. So the first month I joined with you, I did 20K. And then, they did 20K the other 2 months as well.
So like obviously that confidence of knowing that you can rely on it now is probably the thing that's eased you the most. But obviously you said the sales process was the thing that's been the biggest change. Tell me a little bit more about that, like in more detail. What did you change and why has it changed so much?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest, so I'll tell you about where I was before that, right? Like why I even thought it was a problem in the first place. So as I said, like I was able to book sales calls. I would book at least 3 to 5 discovery, like real good sales calls every week. So that would over the course of the month, I would say I'd have like 12 to 20 sales calls. I just wouldn't really close that much. Like I would, probably have less than like a 20% close rate. And honestly, the reason was like I would get interest, right? Guys would say that, yeah, this is like a great thing. But it was like that urgency, right? Like I didn't have the urgency on how to actually get them to close now instead of like, look, my ICP, I understand it's like they're wealth advisors, they overanalyze everything, but mostly to their detriment, right? Like obviously when you're analyzing a stock portfolio, it's very different from trying to analyze an investment for yourself, that's not in a market because you obviously want to grow. So that was kind of the factor, right? Like I just had a lot of trouble getting them to realize the urgency that they have there. And I think part of that was also the belief, right? Whether that was like through seeing the results that I've gotten. I don't think I didn't have that in like a good format beforehand. The results, the belief in what exactly is it that I'm buying into, and then also just creating that urgency. So like all three of those things were a massive struggle, which is why I would pretty much like every single sales call I would have, I would get into that situation where be like, oh, I'll get back to you in a month or a week or whatever the case may be. And that hurt me. Like I hated that. And I honestly thought I was never going to figure it out. I was like, oh, maybe this is just how sales is. Right. And then the biggest change that we made, right, like when I started with you in April, was first of all, just like the sales process in general. Like I think I walked you through like the process I was already using. You gave me a new process. And the biggest change there was trying to understand like the deeper reason behind them even wanting to get change in the first place. Right. Like you told me pretty much everything, even my knowledge of my ICP, a lot of it was pretty surface level where it's like all they want to get clients on LinkedIn and beyond, right? Not like why do they even want to get clients on LinkedIn in the first place? Why do they even want to get clients as an advisor in the first place? Why are they in this business, right? So you asked me those questions when, I've seen on a sales call with you, and then you kind of taught me to do the same thing on my sales calls. And that made a huge impact, honestly, because now every sales call I can bridge back to that deeper meaning for pretty much all of my clients. It's about their family or their kids or whatever the case may be. So the sales process was definitely a big change, having a better, more structured one that you gave me. Then the biggest change after that, was the confirmation page, right? So basically after someone books in a call, they go to a confirmation page. That's probably, if I had to pick one thing that made the biggest difference, I mean, that was huge, right? Like saw yours when I booked in a call with you. And then when, we made one, whatever, when you made one for me and we kind of made all those videos and stuff, that just made a massive difference, right? Like my close rate went up to like basically 40-50% now. I get on calls, people, they exactly know what they're getting. They know they know what the program looks like. They've obviously seen all the results. So all that belief is there. And I'd say the one other change beyond the confirmation page that made a huge impact was you kind of helped me restructure my offer a little bit, right? So I had like an offer document that I would run through that would clearly show the outcomes, clearly show what people were getting. That obviously made a huge impact. And then the other piece as part of that offer that you told me was like, gave me the idea of on that call, give them like an incentive to join on the call. Right. And honestly, like I didn't think it would work. Like I had before that, like never gotten anyone to pay on the call itself. And since then, pretty much honestly, every single one of the clients I've onboarded has paid on the call, right? Which is obviously, I love that, right? That's the best position to be in. So quite a few changes to the sales process, but all those together, like have really that's completely changed my business. So
Percent. Like you literally doubled your close rate, which is insane. Seeing that we didn't really give you any sales call training. It was more the
yeah,
content, the pre-call process, and just educating the lead so to trust you before they ever get on a call with you, right?
yeah. And I think also like the one thing I'll add in there, like you mentioned sales training. It's funny you mentioned that because like when I was thinking, so I was always in the mindset, I'm sure we'll get into this, but like I was always in the mindset of I want to invest in myself as much as possible, right? Like literally if I have the cash, I'm not worried about anything else. Like I'll invest if I find the opportunity. I think I was a little slow on it the first few months I started. I had invested obviously in my content agency and stuff, but really in like good coaching, that was obviously pricey. Like I didn't, invest in that early on. And when I was deciding to do that, right, like but choosing between if I wanted to invest in you and stuff like that, my other thoughts was like, I don't know, like should I invest in sales training because, obviously I need to improve my close rate. And then you told me where it's like, it's not really about your sales skills. It's more about the system you've built for your sales. And obviously we've seen the impact of that and it's been so true. So that's the other thing I'd add in there.
Go and hire a sales coach, and they might help you double your close rate, but then your sales calls becomes longer, right? Because you're then having
Yeah.
to handle the objections on the sales call every single time, whereas our process just gets rid of the objections. We find is
Yeah.
the more smoother way of doing things. But
I also think, and sorry not to riff on this too much, but like really the reason I like that, what you said, where it's like just get rid of the objection before they even get on a call. And look, maybe I've obviously I could be better at sales, and maybe I could close a little bit more. But in the end, like a lot of it does feel like if I have like pretty much all the clients I onboard, they're fully bought into working with me. They're very dedicated to making sure I get results or making sure they get results, whatever the case may be. And that makes them a better client too. Whereas if it's like I'm on a sales call and I'm trying to find a way to psychologically close them, there's no guarantee they're going to be a good client anyways, right? So I think that's something that obviously we'll get into, but all of those conversations that we've had about just building a dream business in the first place, that's played a big role as well.
how did you first come across me slash find out about what I do and who I am, etc.?
Yeah, I think it was LinkedIn content. So like definitely the first few times I saw you was LinkedIn content. I think the biggest thing that I saw that really resonated with me wasn't really about like the LinkedIn lead gen stuff or anything like that. It was more so about like your personality, right? Personality, maybe lifestyle a little bit, right? But more so on the business side, like how you talked a lot about how you want to build a business that you really love. Obviously, you talked about your background having a business that you didn't love so much and why you left that to start a new one. And I like that a lot, honestly, because like that's kind of very similar to how I've thought about it. Like I'm very much into wanting to live in the present, right? Not like just working for the future and just always working my ass off looking for some sort of benefit payoff in the future, but more so, building a business that you love now so you can also live your life now. That was kind of the thing that stuck with me. And obviously, we're pretty similar in age. I was also seeing your success, obviously, very close in age. That's something that I respect a lot. And, I'm that type of person where it's like, I don't think of credibility or experience as age. Obviously, I'm sure you don't either. It's more so about results and the success that you've had. So that definitely stuck with me as well. And then obviously, you had some good business breakdowns also in terms of the changes you actually made to your business. So the LinkedIn content, short answer, was where I first came across. And then we obviously chatted in the DMs after that.
Yeah, 100%. And what actually made you decide to reach out and then eventually end up paying me, as opposed to just consuming the free content that I was putting out and trying to implement it all yourself? What was that kind of mindset switch? Be like, fuck it, I'm just gonna get the information.
Yeah, I think for me, honestly, it's like maybe it's the nature of like being in a similar industry, right? Because obviously, like my business, even though it's obviously different, but at the same time, similar space, info space. It's like I understand that obviously the whole point of you putting out this content is like there's a benefit of investing in somebody, and in the end, like I can consume free content forever, right? Like, your content is good, but there's a bunch of people that have great free content, right? Like that you can consume forever. But also the fact is that everybody can consume that. And you'll see that most people aren't necessarily going to just become millionaires by consuming free content on YouTube. And there's a reason for that. And in my eyes, the reason is just the one-on-one aspect, right? And whether that's one-on-one or whatever the case may be, but having that direct feedback on how to change my business specifically, right? And it's kind of that mindset of like, I don't know what I don't know, right? That was what I really adopted and bought into, where it's like, regardless of where I was going to invest, the reason I wanted to invest is because I don't know the things that I don't know. And obviously, everything that we just talked about with the sales process, that's a perfect example of that, right? I could have watched 100 videos about sales and I would have never figured out that exact system on my own. And then, with you, obviously, we can talk about it, but you saw the problem, said that this is a solution that we should at least try. And then I implemented it fast and it obviously worked out. So I think that was the biggest thing, right? Like I just decided that I don't know what I don't know. And I want to get that one-on-one implementation regardless of how much it costs.
100%. And like, I think the fact you implemented so fast and fully trusted everything I said was the part that made you a great client. Obviously, a lot of my clients do well. They make their money back. They increase their revenue by say 2x. But the ones that really exceed, say you, obviously I have like Alex, Peter, Georgia, Chris, blah, blah, blah. Like all these people who are 4 or 5 Xing their money or their revenue, sorry, it's because they implement so fast and they just trust everything we say. And like, I think that's what I've seen in you. You've just come in, every single thing I've said to do, you've done it within 24 hours and you've moved extremely fast. Looking back, let's say Ritvik back in March, how do you think about spending money on yourself and your business now versus before? Do you feel like your mindset has switched now that you've invested?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm smiling because it feels so different, right? Like I think just the whole mindset shift has been like I can obviously see, like why I invested in myself, right? Like this whole investment that I made, by far the best investment I've made. Like I think literally the first month, so I was at 10K in March. The first month working with you, April, I hit 20K, which I was, I didn't think that was gonna actually happen. And then since then, it's not like it was a fluke month. We obviously did it twice again, and we can talk about what we're gonna do from the future. Obviously, we're gonna grow a lot more as well. But I think just the mindset shift has honestly been like, and this is going to get a little bit deeper, but I know we obviously have these deep conversations a lot of times in terms of like, why do I even want to build the business in the first place, right? For me, a lot of it is about freedom. Like I really want the freedom to not be bound to like one specific job, not have to, always go into work, whatever the case may be. And also just the freedom to obviously traveling is one thing. Obviously, I know you like to travel a lot too. So those types of things, like the way I think about my life now, it's like I can do those things, right? Obviously, I'm not super rich or anything, but I have the freedom to at least do things that I want. And also I know I'm going to grow more and that gives me more solace and, kind of hope for the future as well. This month's a great example. So today's July 1st. In June, I went on 2 vacations. And I still hit a record month, right? Despite going on 2 vacations, I only worked. I literally counted this. I worked like 13 or 14 days throughout the month and I hit a record month regardless, which is obviously due in huge part to the work we've done. So I don't know if that fully answered your question, but I think that's one of the biggest, like just like lifestyle, like mindset changes it's had for me. Like honestly, I feel like it changed my life. Like where I'm at now compared to February, March, it's just drastically different. So
yeah, okay. So let's go back into like Ritvik, say February, March, because there's a lot of people who are going to be watching this who where you were say 3 months ago. So like describe the version of you before we started. What did like a normal day or a week/month look like?
I think a lot of it was really just stressing about the business, right? Like clearly I was stuck in a rut for quite a long time, right? Like since I started the business, maybe some people wouldn't consider 6 or 7 months a long time, but in my mind it was, right? Like I wanted to grow a lot faster than that. I think honestly it was like a lot of it was really just grinding on the business, right? Like I thought that I had to put in more effort, more hours. I know you've said this a little bit too. Like you used to have the same mindset as well. And I think it's very common. I think a lot of people think about it that way. But what really the change was like an order of magnitude difference, right? So like changing something, which is we talk about leverage a lot, right? Like having that leverage, finding those things. I didn't have that back then. For me, it was like just put in more work. And I was thinking like I didn't have the hope for the future because I was like, there's no way at some point I'm gonna be capped out at how much effort I can put in. That's why I didn't even think I would be able to get to 20K long term, let alone in 2 months from there, right? So really that like a lot of stress, right? Really thinking I had to work a lot in the business. I definitely work a lot less than I did then. Clearly, as I said, about only worked 13 days last month. So I'd say that was the biggest difference. The one thing I will say, which is like obviously what led me into, joining with you in the first place, was I was never really the type of person that was like very hesitant or, when I saw an opportunity that I thought was going to help me, I wasn't going to sit there and hesitate about it for, whatever months on end. I knew that, there's no certainty, right? That's one thing that I think I'm pretty well adopted of, whether that's related to money or anything else. I can get hit by a bus today, right? There's no certainty in anything. I think that's obviously something that holds a lot of people back from investing in things like this. That was something that I feel like I had, where it's like, I know there's no certainty, but in the end, treated it as like, I'm the guarantee, right? Everything Charlie says to do, obviously it's worked for people. There's no reason why it's not going to work for me. All the other things I talk about why I adopted your, kind of belief system, but I'm just going to do everything he says and there's no way it's not going to work out, right? I think that's the one takeaway I'll tell a lot of people because in the end, I tell my clients the same thing. I can guide them, right? Any coach can guide you, whatever the case may be. Charlie can give you ideas and advice, but you're the one that has to do the effort, right? That's the whole point. And if anyone's guaranteeing you that you're going to get results without putting in effort, then, it's kind of a fluke there, in my opinion. So that's kind of the one thing I would say that, like, although I have changed a lot, even that's like my belief there and everything I described has been reinforced, but I still had that belief where it's like, I don't need the certainty to act, basically. I think that was a big thing to note as well.
And like that's carried across in everything you do. Like, again, you probably heard the saying, but one thing is how you do everything. If you half-ass the gym, you're probably like to half-ass your business. If you take action fast in decisions, you're going to take actions fast in your business and in relationships, whatever it is. And that's where it's helped you, just like adopting that. So you're in the consulting game as well. So I imagine you tell your clients the same things, whether it's on a sales call or during delivery.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so like back to Ritvik in February/March. What was the lowest point you had mentally? Not even just like business revenue wise, but say frustration wise or burnt out wise.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I'm smiling again just thinking about it. But honestly, yeah, I mean, there was a point. So obviously, like being in business, trying to do a business, it's not like I have a bunch of people around me that are in anywhere close to a similar scenario. And like background on myself. So, I was obviously, in university and all that. And obviously everybody around me is doing stuff like that, looking for jobs. And I had the opportunity to go into investment banking, right? Like I had that offer, whatever, obviously it's a pretty thing that a lot of people want, pretty good offer and all that stuff. And I have the offer. But for me, it was like, it just wasn't what I wanted, right? Like even once I got that offer, I was like, and it's for obviously the future, but still like once I had that offer, I was like, still not feeling like this was a good thing for me, right? Because if you think about investment banking, it's everything that we talk about with your dream life. It's very far from that. It's probably the opposite of that, right? You pretty much want to kill yourself every single day, being an investment banker in New York City. So like and I'm mentioning that because my lowest point was like basically in February. I realized that everything I'd worked for that wasn't related to the business, right, was not what I wanted in my life. Right. Like completely opposite of what I wanted actually. And it's not like my business was at a place right now where I could see the hope for the future in terms of my business is going to change that and give me the life I want. Right. And I actually remember kind of having like, I won't say a mental breakdown, but I was pretty down in the dumps about it for, quite a few days where I was like, I just don't know where this is going to go. Right. Like I don't have any hope for the future. I don't know if I'm going to end up hitting my goals. And obviously there's nobody around me that can really support me in that either. Obviously, I have, friends, family and all that. And, they love me and they're great people, but they're not going to understand. Right. They're not going to understand the situation that I'm in. And frankly, they still don't, right? Like it's still the same situation. It's just now that I have more hope on my own and, support from people like you, like it's obviously easier. But I think, that answers your question. I think that's kind of the lowest point mentally for me was just realizing that everything I had done was not going to get me to where I wanted to go. And my business still wasn't in a place where it's going to get me to where I wanted to go either. And look, even now, like I'm not saying that I'm completely happy being at whatever, $27,000 a month. Like, and I know we always say this, but you're always going to want more, right? Regardless of what it is. But at least now, like for me, it's not even really about the number. It's about having that idea of how to grow, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk about it toward the end of this call, but I have so many ideas on, what exactly steps I have to do to keep growing to the point where I want to be in the next 4 or 5 months, 6 months, whatever. And that's honestly the part that gives me hope that I didn't have before, right? When I was trying to figure it out on my own, I had so many ideas, but I had no, implementation. I had no actual belief in that happening. Long-winded answer, but hopefully that answers your question.
No, completely, like 100%. That belief that you've got now, it expands your mind because you're not operating from a place of like
Yeah.
survival anymore. You're not just thinking, how do I pay the bills this month? You're thinking, right, I know how to pay the bills. I get to 100, 200, 300K a month. Keep these parts short and snappy. What did you think problem was coming into the program?
Yeah, I thought of my sales process, right? Like I definitely thought like there was something wrong with the way I was doing sales, but I didn't actually think about the process. I thought of more so just my sales skills, where like I thought I had bad sales skills. And then also the other side of things was like maybe my lead gen wasn't good enough, right? Like I thought that I was booking enough calls, but if I'm not closing, then maybe I just need to book more calls, right? Whereas, obviously if you have 20 sales calls a month, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to close at least 5 or 6 of those.
Yeah.
So that was where I thought my problem was. And then obviously we talked about the kind of changes we made there, but
Now that you've gone through the program and you're much more experienced in business and say lead gen marketing sales, what did it actually turn out to be?
yeah, a lot of it was honestly just about like forget the sales skills, right? It's like about the process, as I said, right? Like content is a big piece of it. Obviously, we talk about that a lot. I don't even think we've mentioned my YouTube, but I started doing YouTube basically a month into working with you. That made a huge difference as well, right? It all basically plays into the whole idea of sales systems. I think now, like if I'm saying, answering your question, where it's like, what was the actual problem? It's more of just the overall belief, right? Like, how does my content build belief? How does my pre-call process build belief? How does it get people to actually trust me? Like a lot of the psychology, right? And I've always been into the psychology side of business, but all these things I didn't really piece them together, right? So we talked about the confirmation page and using that to build belief. My YouTube just builds a lot of belief, right? With interviews like this, and then obviously videos breaking down what exactly it is that I do. Like all of those things really playing into building belief with your prospects. So that now, and I can see the difference. Like when I get on a sales call now, I've literally had prospects say like, yeah, I mean, your sales call or whatever, your marketing process is so good. I mean, it's like I already feel like I want to buy. Kind of exactly similar. I don't know if we talked about that, but exactly similar to the way it worked out with me and you. So I'd say that was kind of the biggest shift, where it's like instead of thinking very nitty gritty on like one specific detail, it's really an overarching change that I have to make to my mindset in terms of how I'm going to build belief with my prospects.
100%. And Ritvik now, say, we're 1st of July 2026. Walk me through what's actually changed in how you operate day to day, like compared to 3 months ago before you ever came in.
Yeah, I think an easy way to describe it is just kind of the abundance mindset, right? Like when I think about my business now, like look, you can think about last month and say that I wanted to hit 30K and I missed it by like 3 or 4K, right? If that was me, like a while ago, where I was like, oh, I missed out on 3 or 4K, whatever. It's like, I was so close to hitting my goal. I would have stressed about that, right? And look, I still obviously I'm still normal. I do stress about things like that, but in the end, it's like I don't really care that much because I realize that from a broader broader scale of things, it doesn't matter, right? Like I know I'm gonna hit my goals in the long term. I have that direction. I know what I have to improve, also, right? Like even from this last month, I can look back. I have the data. That's another thing we didn't talk about much, but tracking sales call data, tracking data better, and just knowing what changes I have to make. So I think really a lot of it is like having clarity on where to go from here, not stressing as much, right? Like really scaling into that comfort in that business that I want. I think those are probably the biggest changes that now I can be pretty confident in. Honestly, the abundance mindset applies to everything beyond business as well, right? Like in the business sense, whenever I come across an opportunity for ways to spend money now, all the money I've made, I'm more than happy to do that. Especially if I think it's going to help me grow, then I don't hesitate or even think twice to do it. Like YouTube's a good example of that. The other side of things is just in life in general, right? Like I just know that in the end it's going to work out for me, so I don't have to stress about anything. So it's pretty, deep thing, I guess, but that's kind of the way I approach life now.
Definitely. I always say like business is the best battleground for you to figure out yourself. It holds up a mirror to you and says, this is what's wrong with you, fix it. And until you figure them things out, you will not grow. Aside from money, obviously you probably got more money in your bank account now, I assume, but what did you have before that you didn't realize was missing that you have now? Whether it's say like credibility, consistency, or like even like a name in the space, or maybe you feel a little bit more proud of yourself, or your parents were more proud of you. Like what's one thing you've now got you didn't realize was missing before?
I think the biggest one is confidence, honestly, right? Like I thought, like, when I grew up, when I think about my childhood, like I always thought of myself as a confident person, right? Because like, frankly, most of the things I did, like I played, American football. I was obviously very academic, all those things, like I was pretty good at them, right? So I had that confidence. Then when I started doing this business, it's very hard to have confidence when you're not really doing much, right? So I just didn't have any confidence in like, am I actually even good at this in the first place, right? Even though I know it's what I want and I know it can help me get to my goals, but I don't have the confidence in me being able to do it. And look, like we talk about this a lot, right? Like all of your subconscious beliefs, they come out in everything you do, right? So that lack of confidence comes across in your DMs, it comes across in your content, it comes across in your sales calls, and that really just has a ripple effect. So I'd say the confidence is a huge thing, right? Like now when I think about my business, I just have the most confidence in myself, right? Even though I haven't necessarily built like a massive business or anything, I just know that I can make a change. Like I went from 10K to 20K within the span of a month. And then I've repeated that 3 months in a row. And now I know this month we're going to do even more than that. So like, that's really the kind of biggest change I would say is just having that confidence. And it's had a ripple effect on everything in life, right? I think the way I carry myself is definitely a lot more confident. I, just have a more positive outlook on life in general. So like you can imagine that makes life a lot better to live, for anyone listening. So yeah, I'd say that's probably the simplest thing. I'm not in the, in the dumps every day about my business and thinking about that it sucks, or even on the days that are bad, right? Maybe that's a good thing to talk about. Like even still, there's obviously days in my business that aren't good, right? But nonetheless, I just have the confidence and I know that I'm going to figure out a way to solve them, whether that's through talking to you or whether that's through figuring it out based on the things that you've taught me. I just have the confidence and I know I'm going to figure it out. So maybe that's a long-winded answer, but yeah, that's what I would say.
I love it. Yeah. And like, this is a bit of like maybe a controversial one, but let's say you didn't sign up with me in April. If you had to put a dollar figure on how much that decision of not signing up would have cost you, what do you think it would have been?
Oh man, I mean, it would have been, yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine. I'd say like, and this is going to be, my answer is going to sound stupid, but I'd say like 600, 700K, $1 million, because if I never figured out those problems, I would have been in the same exact spot. Because look, like, I'm not even going to say it based on like obviously the easiest number I could say is just how much I've made since then, right? 100 grand, whatever it's been, like close to 100 grand, right? But in the end, right, like if I never figure that out, it's also all the growth that I'm going to have based on everything that we've learned, all the implementation we're going to do from now. Obviously, if you want to talk about that, we can, but like, all the ideas I have for this month and the next month and how I'm going to grow. If I didn't have that direction from you and kind of everything that we've talked about, I'm missing out on like millions of dollars, right? So I think that's kind of the way I think about it, where it's, the kind of nature in the consulting and the info business is that it's not just about how much money you've made, it's also all the growth. I think the biggest theme in everything we've talked about today is just the benefit that having a direction of growth gives you. And so if I didn't have that direction of growth, I mean, it's, I'm losing out on not just money, but also all that stuff on the mindset and the personal side that we talked about. So I'd say hundreds of thousands of dollars, honestly. Like, it's hard to put a number on it. Which also goes back to kind of, as we talked about, like when I first talked to you and we got on that sales call, like I was pretty much ready to say like any number you told me that I had the access to in the cash, I would have spent it and joined there on that call. Like I'd already told myself that. I think I don't know if we talked about that, but that's something that I even said on the call after I paid. So
you paid in full on the call, which I was like, okay, cool, this guy is going to be a fucking killer because he makes decisions fast. And then you said, oh, by the way, if you said the price was double what it was, I still would have paid it. And I was like, fuck, I need to raise my prices. So
yeah, that's why I waited until after I paid to say that. Yeah, but no, I mean, your structure was good though, right? Because you also obviously have that like, performance bonus and all that. Like once we hit and crush the goals a little bit, then, you got obviously paid even more then. And that just gives more certainty to me also, because you obviously have an incentive there to help me grow even more, beyond what I've already paid you. So, and I'm sure your prices are increased by now and all that stuff as well. So that's a big benefit.
Last couple of questions then. What would you say to someone who's sitting exactly where you were a few months ago, in the same position, maybe earning between 5 to 10K a month, been stuck there for a few months, feel stressed about where their business direction is going, or like maybe feel like the business is inconsistent? What would you say?
I would say stop looking for certainty, right? Because look, like in the end, if people are analyzing 100 different options, right? And even if you're going to figure it out on your own, or you think you're going to figure it out on your own, and you look at all the options for what you can do, it's like, oh, should I do this? Or should I do this? Should I do this? Really, the reason that you overanalyze is because you're looking for certainty. You're looking for a reason that, oh, I'm 100% sure this is going to work out. Unfortunately, in life, that's just not a thing that happens, right? It's not something that exists. And so when you're looking at, and this is actually funny because literally somebody commented on my post I put up the other day about how hiring a business coach had helped me grow so much. He asked me like, oh, what do you look for when you're, thinking about hiring a business coach? And I said, look at the person who knows your space, right? They know your industry, who you actually like as a person. That's a huge part of it, right? We didn't even talk today about like all the conversations we have that are not even business related. I mean, we did a little bit, but that you actually like from a personal perspective. And the third part of it that I told him is stop looking for certainty. If you have like even an ounce of belief in what you think they're doing, go for the risk, right? Because if I never took that risk, as you can imagine from this interview, my life would be completely different, right? So stop looking for certainty, look for opportunities that are going to help you grow. Right. I mean, in reality, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're in business, those opportunities are going to show up automatically, as we talked about. So that's what I would say, right? Like, it's really just that certainty, and think about the change you could have on your life is, just taking that risk. And look, like the other thing I'll add, which I know this is going to become a long answer, but a lot of people are uncomfortable with those uncomfortable decisions, right? Which is natural. Like it's your mind is going to naturally push you to avoid those uncomfortable decisions, investing a lot of money, making a lot of changes in your business and your life, whatever the case may be. But the way you should think about that, in my eyes, is the reason that they're uncomfortable is because they're going to work, right? Like the reason that they're uncomfortable is also why most people are never going to see success because they're going to push away those uncomfortable decisions. And I think one of the changes for me, so I listened to a podcast called Founders. I obviously consume a lot of business content from people in the past, and you'll always hear they took risks, right? They took on uncomfortable situations, and that's why they won. And look, you're going to lose too. Like I was lucky that this investment that I made worked out so well for me immediately. Maybe some investments are out there that aren't going to work out, right? People that come across coaches, and you know it. There's a lot of people in the space that are going to be scams. But if you're going to let that stop you from actually having success and actually seeing the growth that you want, then maybe it's not for you, right? I think that's kind of the mindset that I've adopted, where it's like no matter what, you just have to keep going, and those uncomfortable decisions are why you're going to grow. It's not going to stop you from your growth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. Like, there's no certainty in anything. Like, either I know this video is not targeted at this group of people.
Even people in 9 to 5s who go, yeah, but it's stability. I completely disagree. I think nothing in life is stable.
I say it all the time.
9 to 5 seems stable because you know how much you're earning, but at the same time, the boss could decide to fire you at any point. The company could get bought out. Like nothing is stable, and so you can only create your own stability through the way you think of things.
I'll even add to that a little bit, right? That whole 9 to 5 idea. Like I know, as you said, this may not be the demographic, but I'm sure there are some people who are maybe like on that edge of maybe wanting to, take a chance and start their own thing and invest in you as a result. Like really the biggest thing I think about it is like, and this is similar to my dad. Like my dad's come from that life. He's been very successful in his 9 to 5, whatever the case may be. Right. And I respect him for that, but obviously we have very different mindsets on that end. And that's kind of why when he talks about my business, it's obviously from a different mindset. So I tell him the same thing, like, especially in the industry now, you can look to jobs pretty much anywhere in the world, regardless of what industry you're in, whether that's finance or technology or anything, right? There really is not much certainty. And honestly, it's kind of, I think about it as more risky because look, like let's say you get fired, you haven't really built up anything up until then, right? Like now in my business, for example, let's say I have a slow month and I stop making money this month or it's up and down. At least I built up so much before that. I have all the clients, I have all the relationships. With the content, I have some credibility, right? Like people know my name. That's another thing I didn't really talk about honestly today, but like I have speaking opportunities coming up because people know my name and they respect the work I've done with clients. And so I built all that up as well, right? So that's another thing that I think about it, where it's like, in doing this, it's obviously different, it's more uncomfortable, but I think you slowly get very used to that uncomfortability, right? Like you're always gonna have stress a little bit at the start of the month, but in the end, like I think we've talked about this a lot. You've obviously experienced it for longer than I have, but in the end, things are gonna work out regardless, no matter how much you're gonna stress. So, yeah, another little tidbit there.
Okay, then to like kind of wrap things up, what's the next number or goal you're chasing?
Yeah, so I've put my goal like for next year, like by the end of next year at 100K a month. I think, and it may sound soon, I think it's a reasonable target, right? Like it's still quite a long time out. I mean, it's like 18 months out from now. By the end of this month, I want to be at, by the end of this year, sorry, I want to be at 50K a month. I think honestly, I'll hit that a lot earlier than that. Reason being, we talked about this a little bit, kind of balancing out my offer. So I'm launching a group offer this month basically. And I think that's going to, obviously we talk about the timing and not wanting to work all the time. That's a big piece of that, being able to scale a little bit faster. And then obviously, as we talk about offers, raising prices, balancing out those processes as well. And then obviously we're going to implement even more systems, whether that's, with hiring and VAs or whatever the case may be. So that's kind of the next number, right? Like really being at 50K a month by the end of this year. I think I'll hit that earlier than that, in my opinion. And then by the end of next year, just kind of scaling up those systems a little bit more. I don't think it's going to be much of a change and getting to that 100K a month mark. So, and the other thing, like, as I said, kind of similar to what I talked about in this interview today, it's like, I have the full belief in me hitting both of those goals. Like there's pretty much no part of me that thinks I'm not going to hit either of those. So that's the other thing I'll add. Like I don't even think about that as like a hard goal to reach, to be honest.
And I think that's what makes you do so well, because you have no beliefs or doubt around the fact you're going to do it.
A lot of people, they may say, I want to hit 10K a month. They don't believe it to their core. And so they make moves as if they're not going to actually hit 10K a month. So like, for example, let's say someone here is sitting at 5K a month, they want to hit 20K a month. They may say it out loud, but truly they don't actually believe they'll ever hit it. And so they don't invest in the decisions that will get them to that point.
It's huge. And I think we didn't talk about that enough today, to be honest. Like that's something I may have glossed over. That's been a huge change for me, because even now when I look at my business, like although I said I don't stress about it, all that stuff, but I still don't necessarily feel like I'm at my potential, right? Like I look at my numbers that I made last month and I'm like, well, I could do 5 times that, honestly. Like I think of my actions as someone who can do 5 times the amount that I did. And as you said, maybe that's a big reason why I am able to see success, because all the actions in my life, like we talk about abundance and all that stuff, like I take my actions as if I'm already at the goal that I'm trying to achieve, right? Whether that's 50K a month, 100K a month, like like I think I'm closer to becoming that person than technically the person I am based on what I'm making right now, if that makes sense. I know for some people this kind of gets wishy-washy, but I know you know you can understand it. We talk about it a lot. But I think that's a huge difference, right? Your beliefs really do change your actions completely. And as we said, the subconscious is a big part of that. It'll come out in every single action you make in your business. And that's something I'm still trying to learn, right? Still trying to adopt even more of. And you've obviously taught me a lot of that as well.
The easiest way to do that is think like, right, what would the version of me at that number already do? But yeah, you're fucking killing it. And like, obviously you come in with zero limiting beliefs, which I love, and you've smashed everything. You've worked hard. You've implemented quick. You've believed in everything that I've told you to do, and as a result, like you've smashed it out of the park, which is exactly what we want. So before we wrap things up, then like anything that we haven't covered that you want people to know, or like final words of wisdom, or even if you want to plug your own service to any financial advisors, like feel free.
No, that's all good. We don't have to worry about that part. But I'd say the biggest thing that I would say, like I think we covered a lot here today, but if we had to sum it up, right, it's really like and I think the limiting beliefs were a huge way to end, right? Where it's like if you think that you're not going to see the success, then honestly, no matter what investment you make, it's probably not going to change that unless the investment is in changing those limiting beliefs, right? And like you have to, if you can't believe in yourself, right, you're going to doubt. Everyone has doubts, everyone has stress, but like if you don't believe in yourself, then there's really, unfortunately, no one else that's going to add that in for you. So that's what I would say. And obviously, like for anybody thinking of investing with Charlie, hopefully this lengthy interview has, convinced you a little bit more. But by far the best investment I've made in my entire life, right? Like you can see the return. And as I talk about, like not even the money I've already made from it, which has already been basically like 10x, but also beyond that as well. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, wicked.
That was fucking sick. I appreciate you like going into so much detail for it. But if you need anything, ping me a message on Discord. But yeah,
sorry to cut it short. I just realized that he just pinged me. So
that's right. Have a good one.
All right, cool. See you, bro.